All right, so here's what we're going to look at today. So we're sticking with that stick dowel, stick work, stick mobility. I'm going to throw three more things at you can do for stretching, for mobility type of work with this guy. So what we're going to look at today is what I call a little shoulder mobility or shoulder around the world. You may have seen it done with like a plate weight or a kettlebell, but I like to use the dowel from time to time to do that around the world. Just gets those arms a little wider, hits that mobility in those shoulders a little bit different area. So we'll do the around the world. Then we're just going to go to a little hip flexor stretch, but we're going to use the dowel overhead just to elongate that stretch, get a little stretch through the shoulders. Again, concentrating on some mobility in those shoulders. And then we'll also look at what I call Ape Hangers, for lack of a better term, but you'll use the dowel and you'll just find yourself a door frame to do that stretch, and we'll explain that and show that to you. So the first one is that around the world or shoulder mobility type of work, and I'll show you from the front, the side, and the back just so you can see what's going on there. But you're just basically going to take that stick and get kind of that snatch grip, and you're going to go around your head for repetition, and then around, then we reverse and go the other way. So to do that, all you're going to do is go around the body. So it's just around, working on the mobility of those shoulders. So from the side, same concept, going around, and then from the back, same concept, just so you can see the mobility, those shoulders working. Again, we would go one direction for 10 to 15 reps, and then we're going to reverse that guy and go 10 to 15 reps all the way around. So that's around the world for some shoulder mobility. Now for that hip flexor stretch, it's no different than any other hip flexor you may have ever done. So we're in that hip flexor stretch. Again, nice and tall. We're not going to hyperextend as we go out into that stretch. We're going to stay tall. We want to take that pelvis and we want to shift forward with the pelvis going towards that front foot. Front foot is flat on the floor, and you just shift forward into that stretch. But as we go into that stretch, we want to raise that dowel just to elongate that hip flexor stretch on this leg, and to get a little bit more shoulder mobility work in there too. So it's kind of a twofold stretch. So as we go out into that stretch, into that hip flexor stretch, I'm just going to raise the dowel overhead. Nice and tall, elongating that hip flexor, and then back down. So you're going to hold that guy for a normal stretch, and then we're going to switch sides, same concept, just so you can see it from the front. We'll go out into that stretch. Take those arms back as you go out into that stretch. So it's just a little modification to a normal hip flexor stretch. You may have seen the normal hip flexor stretch. We're just going to add the dowel there for, again, kind of bilateral, some shoulder mobility work while we're doing that hip flexor. And then the last one is going to be what I call an Ape Hanger. Find a door frame, and you'll just stand inside, and it's a nice stretch for those pecs through the shoulders. You maybe get a little trap stretch in there, but it's a good pec stretch. And again, you want to make sure when we do this stretch, we're looking straight ahead. Don't drop that neck down. So I'm going to use the squat rack here as my door frame. So you got your door frame. You just take the dowel, stick it right up on the door frame, and you're just going to step forward. I like the stagger step, and stepping forward, and stretching through those pecs. Again, don't drop that head, looking straight ahead, and hold that guy. And then you'll step back. You can alternate legs. It doesn't really change the stretch a whole lot. Again, we're going for a stretch in those pecs as we do it. You might feel a little stretch through the abdomen down into that hip flexor as you step forward. So you can alternate legs. Again, it's not essential that you do that, but you're just going to go out and hold that stretch so we get a nice stretch in those pecs. A little bit different than doing a 90-degree door frame stretch or corner stretch. So you may have seen those. So that's just just a little modification just to change things up. So try kind of hitting the upper body today with some mobility work through a little hip flexor stretch there, so you get some stretching in that lower body too. But check those out, try those. Check back there on the YouTube channel. Always check that Facebook page. All these stretches are there. Again, through this entire month, we've been looking at this dowel and looking at some stretches we can do with that. So there's a whole list there. So check those out.